I'm David Gewirtz, and welcome to the latest edition of DIY IT's Discovery Series on 3D printing here on ZDNet. Today what we're going to do is get started talking about CAD, building our first actual design in CAD. Now, one of the things that I wanted to get across today is that CAD is not nearly as hard as most people think it is. In fact, what we're going to do today is we're going to deal with rectangles. I have a couple rectangles here that I've made, and we're going to make these rectangles in a CAD program, in one CAD program called 123D Design. And basically, by making rectangles different sizes, by dealing with their alignment, whether it's rotated one way or the other way, whether you rotate it along different axes and placing them together, we can build some objects. So let's build our first object. Okay, let's get started doing some 3D design. This is going to be our first hands-on example of some 3D design work, and this should be pretty straightforward. I'm going to be using a program called 123D Design, which is at 123dapp.com/design, and it's a free program. What I want to talk about first, before we get started, is the choice of design program. And the fact is that there are just a ton of different programs that are available for you to do different kinds of CAD with. I've chosen this one for two simple reasons. The first is that it's free, and the second is it's the one I got started with when I did a lot of watching of YouTube videos on 3D printing before I got started working on it, and a lot of the projects were done using this tool. So I figured I'd try it out and see what I thought of it. And it turns out to be okay. It's not the best in the world, but it's not bad. And so that's what I've decided to use for this purpose. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by building some very simple primitives. And I'll show you how to do that. And basically, if you can use any tool that does basic drawing and you can follow a few simple directions, you're all set. Let's do a 10-second tour of this program. Here is a drop-down menu for saving and opening and closing. Up here are some of the basic primitives. Over here are some of the format and style things, like, for example, you can turn the grid on and off. Down here is the units that you align things with, and then over here will be a set of options for the objects you select, and we'll do that first. So I'm going to start with rectangles, and this entire project is going to be basically rectangles. And so you come up to primitives. This is very straightforward. You just come up to these objects, and each of these are different kinds of operations. But we're going to start here. We're going to simply create a box, and we're going to click the box, and we're going to drop it on the plane. So we now have a box, and when I select it, you get this menu down here, and you can do things with the box. I am going to turn the box into a rectangle, and then we'll work with the rectangle. So the two primitives that we're going to be playing with today, the two tools we're going to be playing with today, are the Move tool and the Smart Scale tool. The Smart Scale tool basically sizes it, and the Move tool moves it. So let's start with the box. And one of the things that I just did here is you can select faces and do things with the individual faces, or corners, or the entire object. I'm going to work with the entire object, and I'm going to say scale. And the first thing I want to do is I want to make it 2.5 millimeters high. Now, the reason I'm making it 2.5 millimeters high is that in a previous project, I chose 2.5 millimeters as my thickness for the back of the TV monitor project, and I liked it. It was a good, solid, not too thick, not too thin thickness. So because I chose it once, that's what I'm using. Now you'll notice that this has got a sort of a shadow over here, and that's because this rectangle is now floating above the base. And it turns out that if you can adjust it using the Move tool and move it up and down. I'm not going to show you that yet. Or you can simply select the object and hit the D key, and it'll fall flat on the ground. So I'm going to make a rectangle, and the rectangle I'm going to make, come back here, is we made it 2.5. I'm going to make it 125 millimeters long, and I'm going to make it 100 millimeters wide. So that is going to be my rectangle, and that is the base of the box. And I can click it and move it around like this, or I can move it around using the move tool, which I'll show you in just a second. But the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to copy this rectangle, and that's what we're going to deal with a few of these different things. So the first thing is, you've noticed, let's just recap that I used the Smart Scale tool to size the thing, and then I use the move tool, or we'll use the move tool to rearrange it. So I'm going to do, this is going to be Command or Control C, Command or Control V to copy and paste, and this is the move tool that's going to pop up. And it looks complex, but it's really not. There's a set of arrows for each dimension for X, Y, and Z axis, and a set of rotators for rotating it in the axis. So I'm just going to pull the arrow and pull the copy out this way. Okay? So that's all I did. In fact, let me undo that. I'm going to copy and paste. It pastes it right on top of where the original is. I'm just going to take this arrow and I'm just going to drag it out. And I'm going to click off of it. And now we have two of these objects. So what I'm going to do with this object now is I'm going to go to Smart Scale. And this time, instead of 100, I'm going to make it only 25 millimeters wide. Like that. And so now, and I'll check the checkbox. And so now I have one object that's this size and one that's a nice standard rectangle. And I'm going to make two of these. So I'm going to copy this, paste it, and this time instead of pulling it this way, I'm going to pull it that way. Pretty simple, makes sense so far. Now let me actually show you these tools for a second. Let's go back to the move. I could also use this arrow and go up. I could use this arrow and go this way. I could use this arrow and go that way. And I can also go below the plane, down underneath it, and I can rotate the plane. If you look like this is actually dragging, but I can actually rotate, and you can see under the plane. And I'm using the right mouse button here. That's, if you've ever played a video game, you got a pretty good idea how to move things around. And I'll hit D again. Whoops. I'll select that and hit D again, and it'll put it right back where it belongs. And then I will use this pan button to just bring this back on the screen where I want. So the next thing I'm going to do is select all three of these objects, and you can see they're all selected by the little green highlight. And I'm just going to move them back over here. There's another option that exists that's pretty straightforward, which is the A key for align. And as you can see, if I do that, we get these little align boxes. And you can see that this guy isn't quite aligned with the others. So all I'm going to do is hit that and bring them all back into alignment. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this piece. So I'm going to copy and paste. And this time I'm going to slide it all the way down here. And I'm going to pan my area so that you can see this piece. And I'm going to select it. And we have, again, the Smart Scale. And I'm going to make this side now 25 millimeters. So we now have a 25 millimeter shape here, which I'm going to check off. And I'm going to copy and paste it and bring another one over there. And hit return. And so now, whoops, now let's pan, and you can see my four parts, which are basically a base of a box, two sides of a box, and two front and backs of a box. Pretty simple stuff. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to rotate all of these objects. And I'm going to do one at a time just simply because it's a little easier to see. So I'm going to grab the move tool again. We've been using the move tool a lot. And this time, instead of the arrows, which, as you recall, move them back and forward or up and down, there's this sort of circular thing which will rotate. And in this case, it's rotating it to 90 degrees. I'm just going to undo that because I want you to see that as you rearrange this thing a little bit, you can see that the rotation, you can rotate the thing left and right, up and down, and backwards and forward. So you can once again rotate again on all 3 axes. So what we're going to do, I'm going to bring the screen around a little bit. So I'm going to take this tool, this one, and I'm going to rotate it. And every so often, by the way, I select the wrong rotatey thing, but you can select it and then type what you want. So my Y rotation is 90. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it to right on the level. I'm going to do the same thing to this one. I'm going to select it. I'm going to grab the rotation. Now you can't really see the rotation here because the little tabby's there, so I'm going to grab that. I'm going to tell it I want it to go to 90, and I want it up. And I'll do the same with these two. I'm going to rotate it. Oops, that was scaling. Let's try again. I just hit escape to undo that. I'm going to rotate it. This time I'm going to use this one. See? Okay, let's just undo that. Do that. I'm going to rotate it. Here I'm selecting that one and I'm going 90. And let's bring that up to the top, and I'll take the same thing here and I'll rotate it, selecting this, and 90. And now we have, and let's just make sure I bring that to the top. Okay. And so now we have our 4 sides of the box. So for example, I could then take this thing and move this that way, roughly. I'm not going to get it exactly right because I just want to give you a rough view of what we're doing. And I can take this one and move it here. And I can take this one and move it over there. And I can take this one and move it over here. And now what you see is I've got a box. It's a little bit crude at the moment, but it's a box. And all I did was create a bunch of rectangles, rotate them, and place them. So I want to lift these pieces. Let's come back to, by the way, up here gives you the opportunity to set your screen rotation. So that's the home position. You can do a left view, front view, bottom view, and so forth. So if you're not exactly sure where your fingers are, you can use that to give you a good rotation. And I'm going to pull this out again. I'm going to slide this out a little bit. I'm going to select this one. I'm going to slide, whoops, not do that. I'm going to select that one. Slide that out a little bit. Take this one, whoops, I did not. Let's try that again. Once you select something, you have to select off of it to stop it from being used. So I'm going to select that one, slide that out a little bit, and I'm going to select this one and slide that out a little bit. So now we have basically an exploded view of our box. And you can see that these are all based on the base plate. What I want to do next is I want to raise these 4 sides up so they're 2.5 millimeters up off the base so that they can sit on top of the box instead of embedded in them. So I'm going to, in this case, I'm going to select all 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to hit the move button. I'm going to click up and I'm simply going to say 2.5. And as you can see now, they are now up in the air by 2.5 millimeters. All right. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one and slide it. I'm going to come to the top here so I can see it. And I'm going to slide it to the right so it's over the box. There you go. And we have one side of the box over the box, and I'm going to select. Do the same thing with this. Bring it over. And this one's a little bit off the edge. You can see that it's actually sort of snapping to grid. And that's because I've got these snaps to a millimeter. I'm going to try to go down a little bit on the snap side, and let's see if we can move it and have it go to where we want. There we go. Okay. I'll do the same thing with this one. I'm going to just move it in, and I'll take and select it, move this one, get the selector thing. Whoops. And now the key here is finding which arrow. You can see that it's a little tough to tell which arrow we want to use, so sometimes I move this display over a little bit to see where the arrow is I want. And that looks pretty good from that side. So now we have a nice box. And I could print this, but I'm going to do one more thing to just give you an idea of how you can do, oops, drop my microphone, to give you an idea of how you can do a little bit of style and still use basically rectangles. Because all we've done, we haven't done anything except move around some rectangles and select them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to rotate it 30 degrees, like so. I'm going to take this piece, and I'm also going to rotate it, but this time I'm going to go negative 30 degrees. So it'll go the other direction, right? Now I'll come here, take this piece. I will also rotate it 30 degrees, but on a different axis. Whoops, now I want that one negative 30, see? Like that, okay? I'm going to take this one, and I'm going to rotate it 30 degrees, like so. Now we have these four pieces rotated around, kind of sticking out a little bit and giving us this kind of interesting design. I want to have these pieces meet a little bit, so because I don't like these little edges here. So I'm going to do a little of what I did before, which is sliding. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to simply slide it in a bit, and I'm going to take this and simply slide it in a bit. And you can kind of take a look and see how they line up by just adjusting your viewpoint on it a little. So I'm zooming in and kind of looking at it and seeing it from a variety of angles. And I'm going to go back to the home position and I'll rotate it around this way. And I'll take this one and I'll slide it in a little bit. So now that makes a nice little square on top. You can see the square, see how it gets really sort of the two pieces intersect like that and like that. So I'm going to save that and I'm going to come back over to the other side where I did not have the two pieces intersect. And oops. Okay. Zoom back out a little bit. Select that. Select that. Slide it just a little bit so they intersect, like the other one does. Now you notice I'm not being completely anally perfect about this. If I was doing a full-on design, I might spend some ultra time on it, but it doesn't really need it. I'm getting most of what I want done just by fiddling with it. So the only thing that I need to do now is this panel in the back here needs to be brought in. So let's move it in until they cross over. There we go. And the thing that's interesting is one of the things to understand, if you look here, the bottoms aren't touching. And they need to touch or they won't connect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this thing. Now I moved it up 2.5 millimeters, but it appears that that actually was a little too high. So I am going to again hit M. This time I'm going to actually select all four of these. This one, this one, this one. I'm holding the shift key down, by the way, to do the selection. I'm just coming in here so I can see them that way. I have my move piece and I'm just going to move them down until they slightly touch. I could go down a little further so it actually comes into it, and what will happen is the plastic will merge these things together, so these pieces will all become one nice piece, which I think will be kind of a cool effect. So the only thing that we're going to really need to do next is save this project out, and under this menu you can save to your computer or to the 123 Design cloud and save a copy of it, and then you can export as 3D. And what you want to do is you want to export it as 3D as an STL file, which is what you will use to bring into the slicing program. And in my case, it'll be the MakerBot program to generate the box and actually have it. So that's what we're going to do next. Let's make the box. Okay, well, welcome back, and here it is. It's done. It has finished building. It's a little tray. Doesn't do a whole lot, but it's a simple tray. It's got actually some neat little details on the sides, which is what I was kind of hoping for when we put these things on an angle. And as I mentioned when we got started, these rectangles, here's one of the rectangles, and here's the other rectangle. These rectangles can be put together into all sorts of interesting objects. This is among the simplest, obviously, but once you get started, you can build all sorts of things simply by using rectangles. And then once you're comfortable with that, once you're comfortable taking these things and rearranging them and playing with them, you can start working with other shapes, start working with other resources, and we'll do that in a future episode. Once again, I want to do a special thank you shout out to the folks at MakerBot for making the 3D printer available to us so that we can do these projects, and remind you that down in the lower corner over there is a subscribe button. Go ahead and press that and you'll get a quick notification whenever I do a new video. Thanks a lot, and go build something cool.